Welcome back, guys. It's Zach here, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. And this one, I'm going to go over 4 players at the running back position that I really just can't get behind the ADP on. These are guys that I'm calling them busts here. Of course, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's no situation in which I think you should take them. Obviously, every player has a fair draft price, but these are just guys that I don't really see a clear path towards them beating their ADP right now. So they're guys that I'm personally fading and avoiding in drafts, and I personally recommend that you would too. Of course, some of these guys are going to be controversial names. They're guys that are being drafted relatively high in drafts, so people do clearly still have at least some sort of positive outlook on them. So if you have any disagreements or anything, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to interact with you guys there. If you guys have any other players that you guys are fading, let me know in the comments as well. It's a lot of fun. And, I often say that, especially in the early rounds, the most important thing you can do is avoid busts more than anything. Generally, the guys you're drafting in the first, second, third round, even fourth round, these are guys that are going to be really good for your fantasy team, and you're not necessarily finding a league winner in the first round because those are guys that are going to be good almost across the board, and you expect them to. So even if they finish super high, they don't necessarily win you your league, but you can lose your league pretty early on in the draft if you end up drafting a couple busts. And like if you drafted Tyreek Hill last season, if you drafted Christian McCaffrey last season, that really negatively impacted your roster and made it really difficult for you to make the playoffs and everything. So I find that generally avoiding busts is one of the most important things we can do in fantasy, and hopefully I can help you guys out with that. So yeah, let's get into the first player here, and let's have some fun here. So the first player I'm going to talk about here is going to be Alvin Kamara. And it's really tough to talk about Kamara like this because he's a guy that's been a staple in fantasy lineups for the last, it feels like a decade. Not quite, but he's been around the league for a long time. He continues to perform at a high level. I just really can't get behind the ADP right now. He's currently being drafted as the RB16. That's ahead of guys like Chuba Hubbard, Amarian Hampton, Joe Mixon, all three of which I believe have significantly more upside than him. For starters, if you just look at his performance last year, this is half PPR scoring. That's generally what I'm going to speak on just because it's the sort of middle ground. Of course, things are a little bit different whether or not you're in standard or in full. But in half PPR last season, Alvin Kamara was the running back 21 after week 3. If you guys remember last season at all, week 3, he had like 4 touchdowns, scored like 40-something fantasy points. Then Derek Carr got hurt. The entire offense really just sort of stank the entire rest of the season. So I think, from week 3 on, so you got weeks 4 to 17. It's a 14-week sample size in which Alvin Kamara was the RB21. He also missed 3 games last season. It's just a continued theme for him. He's continuously unable to play a full season, and I don't expect that to get any better for him as he gets a year older. And the real issue here is I just don't really see what the upside is. RB21, given how just horrendous the offense was last season, it's actually pretty good. It's pretty impressive. We know he's going to catch the ball a ton. That's going to give him a pretty safe floor in fantasy. But the Saints are going to be rolling out Tyler Shuck in all likelihood at quarterback in week 1. Who knows who their quarterback is come week 10 or whatever. But it's fair to assume that this offense just is not going to necessarily be high flying. They're not going to be a team that's going to go out there and give Alvin Kamara a lot of scoring opportunities. So I feel like at best, Alvin Kamara is going to be a guy that can PPR his way towards meeting his ADP. I feel like that RB21 kit scenario last year, basically what he did after Derek Carr went down last season, that's a fair expectation for Kamara, as he could maybe do that RB21 category. But, he's a guy who's getting older. I believe he's turning 29 this season. Don't quote me on that, but he's certainly a guy that could fall off a cliff at any minute. He's getting close to that running back age cliff. He's also been a little bit unable to stay healthy over the last several years, so some risk of that. Kendry Miller with the new coaching staff is an opportunity to potentially take some snaps away from Kamara here. In theory, you have Chris Olave healthy, Rashid Shaheed healthy. That's going to add target competition. If you remember, Alvin Kamara was really the only warm body in that offense by the end of the year last year, so he was the guy they had to just force feed the ball, and that's why he was able just to volume and PPR his way to an RB21 finish. And I don't think that volume is going to be there, at least at that much of a level at this point here. So I think there's a lot of room for him to perform below that RB21 threshold. And when you're drafting a guy as the RB16, even if he finishes as the RB21, that was a really negative impact to your roster. And I think there's a lot of room for him to fall even further than that. So I'm not drafting him really at all. I don't think I have him on any of my best ball drafts yet, maybe 1 out of 20 that I've done. So I'm not really targeting him at all. He would need to fall quite a bit for me to be interested. And he's just not a guy that gets me excited right now. Next guy I'm going to talk about here is going to be James Cook. And if you've been around for a while, if you followed me last year at all, you'll know that I was extremely high on James Cook going into last season. I didn't necessarily see him going out there and rushing for 16 rushing touchdowns, leading the league in rushing touchdowns last season. Wasn't really something I would have expected, but I did see positive regression coming for James Cook. And I think that's sort of why it was easy to get excited about him last year. But there's a lot of red flags surrounding James Cook going into this year. For starters, he did score 16 rushing touchdowns last season. By no means is that a bad thing. Obviously, it's great. You can see a guy have that much upside. There aren't very many players that even have that kind of ceiling. So seeing that as within the range of outcomes is a reason to be excited. We also have to remember he scored 2 rushing touchdowns in both 2023 and in 2022. So it was kind of a trend so far for James Cook in his career that he was not a touchdown scorer. They did give him volume and give him goal line work last year, but we know that every single week there's a really high likelihood of Josh Allen rushing a touchdown in. You've got Ray Davis, who's a legitimately talented player. There's room for him to potentially take goal line work as well. And I think it's just fair that we expect him to see James Cook sort of regress a little bit closer to the average here. You combine those 3 years, 2 years at 2 touchdowns, 1 year at 16, puts him at an average of right around 7 rushing touchdowns. I feel like that's a fair approximation for where we should expect James Cook to end up at this point this season. I mean, if you look back to last season, he finished as a running back 8. That's fantastic. But if we just take 9 rushing touchdowns away, I know that's crazy. It's not necessarily fair to do that, but I think that's fair to assume he's going to effectively have the same role in this offense that he did last season, but take away about half of his rushing touchdowns just because that puts him right around his career average. That would have made him the RB19 last season, so that's a really significant drop. He's currently being drafted as the RB14, so I think he needs to pretty significantly overperform in the rushing touchdown department for that to happen. I think there's a lot of other reasons to be concerned here. Like I mentioned earlier, Ray Davis, he's a legitimately good player. I think there's room for him to eat into James Cook's workload just a little bit. There's a reason the Bills aren't paying James Cook right now, even though he really wants a contract. And it's because they've got talented running backs behind him. The one game James Cook missed to injury last year, you had Ray Davis go out there and rush for over 150 yards. So, they can perform at a high level without him. And so there's a reason they're okay with that. They also have been pretty clear so far that they want to employ a committee running backfield. That's why Ty Johnson comes in on third downs all the time. Ray Davis might steal goal line work. On top of that, there's legitimate holdout risk with James Cook right now. He's short mandatory minicamp, but he's genuinely, at least seemingly, very unhappy about his contract situation. That always adds some risk associated with taking him right now. So even if he plays week 1, if he's missing practices, if he's missing training camp, that's just more opportunity for guys like Ray Davis to come in and take snaps. And I think in general, it's fair to assume in my mind that he's probably going to finish somewhere around that running back 19 threshold. Like I mentioned, just give him the same stats he had last season, but what he averages over the course of his career in rushing touchdowns doesn't sound all that crazy. That puts him at the RB19, but I think that there's a lot of room for him to finish below that. Again, he's probably not getting pass catching work. He's probably not going to get nearly the goal line work, or he's not going to score as many touchdowns as he did last season. And if he loses more snaps to a good running back in Ray Davis because he's holding out, there's a lot of opportunity here for him to fall even further. I could go even more about how Dalton Kincaid was playing hurt last season, so was Keon Coleman. If the pass catchers get better, maybe they just throw for more touchdowns. So that takes away from his upside. There's a lot of room for James Cook to perform at a lower level than he did last season, and he's basically being drafted like he's just going to rinse and repeat here. So I'm not drafting much of him. I know he's a really talented player. He's on a great offense, so I get it, but I think there's just a lot of room for people to be disappointed in him this season. This one's actually a pretty easy fade for me. I'm not really worried about it even. Some of these guys, I could see a path towards James Cook potentially burning me and him just going out there and rushing for 15 rushing touchdowns again and leading the league in rushing on a really good offense or something. That could happen with James Cook. But with Breece Hall, I really just don't see a path towards him being the reason I lose because I pass up on him. For starters, Breece Hall was just legitimately not good at football last season if you watched the Jets, which I'm sorry if you did because it wasn't fun to watch the Jets. But if you watch the Jets play football at all, Breece Hall just did not look like himself. We know that when Breece came into the league, he was one of the most explosive running backs in the NFL. He just didn't have it last season. There was no burst. It genuinely looked like Braylon Allen was a better running back than him. On top of that, the Jets brought in Justin Fields this season. That potentially opens up the opportunity here for a little bit of a more efficient ground game. It's something we kind of see with these mobile quarterbacks where you do get a little bit of an uptick in running back efficiency. But we're also going to see with Justin Fields and any other mobile quarterbacks that they're not going to target the running back position nearly at all. Typically, if you're a pass catching running back paired with a mobile quarterback, that mobile quarterback is just going to look to run the ball instead of dump it down to you. That certainly limits the upside for a guy like Breece Hall, who really specializes as a pass catcher at this point. I think that in general, you could argue that as a pure runner, Braylon Allen is a better player than him, at least based off what we saw last season. Last year, Breece Hall finished as the running back 17, and I think it's fair to say that he's probably heading into a worse situation this year. You've got Aaron Glenn coming in as the head coach. Not going to say anything good or bad about Aaron Glenn. He certainly earned the job. He did a good job in Detroit, but he's a defensive-minded head coach. That certainly doesn't get us excited about what this offense is going to do. It's going to be a slow-paced offense. They're going to look to run the ball a lot, and if they're doing that, They're going to have limited scoring opportunities. This is not a team that's projected for a very high win total. It's not a team that we're expecting to put up a lot of points. So you're going to have limited touchdown opportunity, limited just total play volume as well. And right now he's being drafted as the RB13. So people are expecting him to do better than he did last season in an offense that really should have catered to him. It was a lot more pass happy. Defense wasn't fantastic. They were giving up points. And there was an opportunity there for Breece Hall to sort of PPR his way to being really good. And he just could not do that last season. The Jets only scored 8 rushing touchdowns last year. That is horrendous. And whatever touchdowns they do score on the ground this year, Justin Fields is a lock to steal some of those. Braylon Allen might steal the goal line work this year. So you're looking at Breece Hall being a guy who maybe has 5 rushing touchdown upside. Like that's as high as I could legitimately see him getting. And the real ways that we want to see our running back score fantasy points in general, we want them to be great at pass catching. We want them to get the goal line work. If you can do both of those things, you're going to be really good for fantasy in general. And it's likely that Breece Hall has neither of those this season. The pass catching, he'll have that role in this offense, but it's not going to be a very valuable one because Justin Fields is just not a guy that's going to dump the ball down. And then the goal line work, that's going to go to Fields some. That's going to go to Braylon Allen some. And they've been really vocal so far as a coaching staff about they think they have 3 really good running backs. I haven't even mentioned Isaiah Davis's name, but he's a talented player as well. This Jets team clearly thinks they have 3 talented running backs, and they do. They're 3 good players. There's no reason to expect Breece Hall to be a workhorse or anything. So drafting him as effectively a running back 1 or a really high-end running back 2 just feels really silly when he's going to be competing with 2 other guys for touches, and I just don't see a world towards where he actually pays off at his ADP. So I'm fading him for sure this season. I'm not really interested. And lastly, this one feels a little bit harsh, but I'm going to mention Aaron Jones as a bust just because he's not a guy that I really feel excited about drafting at any point. He's not a guy that I think really has a whole lot of upside. Again, I think it's a little bit unfair for me to really do this because he played really surprisingly well last season. He finished as the running back 16 over the course of the year, and he set career highs in usage, stayed fully healthy last season. Like, it was a great year for Aaron Jones. I don't want to take any of that away from him, but I think the biggest risk here is that I genuinely believe he's the second best running back on the team. They brought in Jordan Mason this year. They traded him, gave him a legitimate contract. Jordan Mason is going to get used in this offense. They did not bring him in as a backup. I think it's basically like a 1A, 1B situation. And Jordan Mason is a guy who's going to get the goal line work. Aaron Jones actually was pretty horrendous at that last season for how well he played. He did a horrible job on short yardage situations. So Jordan Mason is going to get the goal line work in this offense. I've mentioned several times how valuable that is for the running back position. And I think in general, Jordan Mason's going to be the guy that they want giving the ball. They want to give the ball to on first and second down. I think he's just a much better runner of the football than Aaron Jones is at this point in his career. And what that turns Aaron Jones into is a passing game specialist and a really good offense. It's not necessarily something I want to be too negative about, but the high level here is this isn't an offense that's going to need to dump the ball down to the running back a whole lot. When you've got Justin Jefferson, you've got Jordan Addison, you've got TJ Hawkinson, like how often are at least one of those guys not open? So just the general check down usage shouldn't be incredibly high in this Vikings offense. And then beyond that, JJ McCarthy is actually significantly more mobile than what Sam Darnold was last season. That's just going to open up a whole other layer of potential risk for pass catching opportunities for the running back. I just talked about how Justin Fields is bad for Breece Hall. These mobile quarterbacks, and again, I'm not calling JJ McCarthy Justin Fields, but he's more mobile. He's going to be less likely to dump the ball down than Sam Darnold was. So I just think there's a situation here where Aaron Jones probably isn't really going to have you be offering you any sort of weekly ceiling. And then what you're hoping for every week is that he gets like 7 to 8 carries, does well with it, gets 40 yards, catches 4 passes for 30 yards, and then you end up at like 10 half PPR fantasy points. And that's just not something that excites me. Again, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of touchdown upside for him because running backs hardly score touchdowns out of the backfield as receivers. On the ground, that's where most of their touchdown production is going to come. That's going to be Jordan Mason in this offense. And again, I just don't really know how valuable he's going to be as a pass catcher for us in fantasy. So I like Aaron Jones. He's a great player, but I don't think he's as good of a running back as Jordan Mason is at this point. And he's being drafted ahead of Jordan Mason too. Like I'd personally much rather have Jordan Mason, even if the cost was the same. And right now you got to pay more for Aaron Jones. So I'm not drafting much of him. I don't hate the ADP. He's going as the RB29, so he's not going to burn you if you draft him and he sucks. But I just think there are better options near him right now in drafts. So that'll do it for the running back bust position. Up next, I'm going to be doing a video going over some wide receivers that I think are going to bust this season. So stay tuned for that one. If you guys haven't already, just make sure you subscribe to the channel. There are going to continue to be 3 or more videos every single week throughout the course of the entire offseason. We're in July right now, so it's time to really start making sure we get prepared for our drafts. You know, a lot of us are going to start drafting early August. You got a month to get ready for that, and we got football really coming around the corner here, so it's going to be a lot of fun. I think the Hall of Fame game is July 31st, so it's closer than you think. So make sure you subscribe, make sure you're staying up to date, making sure you're getting your research in and all that. If you are subscribed already, make sure you just give this video a thumbs up. Helps me out quite a bit. If you made it this far, hopefully this video helped you. So yeah, really appreciate you guys. It's going to be a lot of fun and starting to get really excited here. So thanks, guys, and I'll catch you with the next one. Peace. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter @RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.